What if I told you that some of the absolute biggest businesses in the world right now, we're talking giants like Uber and Airbnb, started just because someone got, well, annoyed? It's true. Uber didn't launch out of some top secret high-tech lab. It literally started because a couple of guys were super frustrated trying to hail a taxi in the freezing rain. And Airbnb? That didn't begin as some grand master plan to disrupt the entire hotel industry. The founders just couldn't afford their rent and realized that finding a reasonably priced hotel in a busy city was a massive headache.
Yeah, exactly. Annoyed. Honestly, so many of the most successful businesses out there begin with this incredibly simple, universally relatable feeling of frustration. It's the ultimate spark for entrepreneurship. But, it begs the question, where exactly do these actionable business ideas come from once you get past that initial spark of annoyance?
Well, here's our roadmap for today's explainer to figure that out. We're going to cover 5 main things. First, we'll look at what business ideas actually are. Second, we'll dive into solving everyday problems. Third, we'll talk about how to become an opportunity detective. Fourth, we'll explore trends and innovation. And finally, number 5, we'll give you a practical tool called the 3-step Gusto method.
All right, let's kick things off with section 1. What are business ideas? Because this really is the foundation of absolutely every company.
So, if we want to get formal for a second, a business idea is simply a concept for a product or service that satisfies a need or solves a problem. But keep in mind, every single business starts with an idea, sure, but not every idea becomes a successful business. A truly successful idea usually does at least one of 3 specific things. It solves a problem, it meets a specific need, or it just improves something that already exists.
Wait, hold on. Looking at those 3 things, does that mean a business doesn't actually need to invent something completely new from scratch? Because I always kind of thought you had to be some sort of genius inventor to start a company.
Exactly. I'm so glad you brought that up because that is easily one of the biggest myths in business, and we absolutely need to bust it right now. You do not need to be a mad scientist inventing a brand new gadget. Sometimes just improving an existing product is more than enough to build an empire.
Think about the very first smartphone compared to the one sitting in your pocket right now. That first one, it wasn't perfect at all. It was clunky, it was super slow, and it honestly had a ton of flaws. But tech companies didn't just toss it out and reinvent the phone from scratch every single year. They just continuously improved the designs and the features. And over time, those continuous incremental improvements created enormous business opportunities.
That leads us perfectly into section 2, solving everyday problems. This is all about looking at the friction points of daily life.
Look, one of the absolute most common sources of business ideas is simply identifying a daily problem. Let's look at an example we literally all know. Imagine your typical morning as a student. You're rushing to school, you're stressing out about forgetting your assignments, and you're constantly terrified of missing your deadlines.
Oh man, that sounds painfully familiar. I think pretty much everyone listening has had chaotic mornings exactly like that.
Right? It's universal. It's such a common friction point. Now imagine someone experiences that exact same stress and decides, hey, I'm going to create a mobile app specifically designed to help students organize their assignments and just completely eliminate that morning panic. That business idea didn't come from a lab. It originated entirely from a highly relatable everyday problem.
And that brings us to what is arguably the ultimate question for any entrepreneur. What problem can I solve? This is the mantra. It's the engine of the entire business world. Businesses that can genuinely answer this question and solve real, tangible problems for people almost always have a drastically better chance of succeeding out there in the market.
I mean, just think about some of the massive, multi-billion-dollar industries we use all the time now. Delivery services, online banking, ride-sharing apps, food ordering apps. Every single one of these only exists because consumers experienced everyday friction. Going to the physical bank just took way too long. Calling a cab was super unreliable. Having to go pick up takeout completely disrupted your evening at home. These businesses are built entirely on solving those specific, annoying consumer problems.
Moving on to section 3, becoming an opportunity detective, because active observation is absolutely key here.
Okay, so let me make sure I'm getting this. Instead of just kind of sitting around waiting for a problem to magically happen to them, successful entrepreneurs basically become opportunity detectives?
I absolutely love that phrase, and yes, that is exactly what they do. They don't just passively live their lives. They actively step back and watch human behavior in the wild.
So what exactly are these detectives looking for? Well, they pay very, very close attention to what people are actually doing. They observe shopping habits. They listen carefully to complaints, rather than just tuning them out or ignoring them. They note daily frustrations, and they track broader trends.
Basically, the best entrepreneurs notice the little things that everyone else just accepts as normal or just the way it is.
Let's look at a real-world example of this detective work in action. Think about long coffee shop lines. You're standing there every morning, watching dozens of people waste 10 minutes shifting their weight, checking their phones, clearly super frustrated by the wait. An opportunity detective sees that line, and they don't just complain about the wait like everyone else. They think, okay, how can I fix this? And boom, they create an app that allows customers to order ahead of time. The idea didn't magically appear out of thin air. It came directly from observing friction in the real world.
And that brings us to Section 4, Trends and Innovation. This is where we look at changing directions and entirely new markets.
So first off, it's crucial to understand what a trend actually is. Simply put, a trend is a general direction in which society is moving. And here's the secret. When society shifts, massive new opportunities just suddenly appear. Just think about the current landscape. We've seen the absolute explosion of online shopping, this huge permanent shift toward remote work, the incredibly fast rise of artificial intelligence, and a really strong cultural focus on health and sustainability.
Those are definitely huge shifts. Can you give us an example of how one of those specific trends actually translated into real, everyday businesses?
Absolutely. Let's look at what we could call the eco-trend effect. So over the last decade or so, society became increasingly and rightfully concerned about the environment. That shift created a massive wave of new consumer demand. Because of that specific trend, we saw the explosive rise of companies making reusable water bottles, electric vehicles, and eco-friendly packaging. The trend created the demand, and that demand created some highly profitable businesses.
Now, right alongside trends, we have innovation. And innovation is powerful because it creates entirely new markets by introducing something genuinely new or significantly improved. This can be a new product, a new service, or even just a better internal process. Think about how streaming services completely replaced video rental stores, or how online learning platforms have totally changed how we access education. Businesses that innovate successfully don't just participate in an existing market. They gain a massive competitive advantage by creating a whole new one for themselves.
All right, let's bring it all together in Section 5, the 3-step Gusto method. Consider this your personal action plan. If you want to start thinking like a successful entrepreneur, right after this explainer, you can apply this incredibly simple 3-step framework. Step 1, notice problems. Literally just look around and ask yourself, what frustrates people? What wastes time? What could just be easier? Step 2, observe trends. Keep your eyes peeled for changes in technology, shifts in lifestyle, or new things consumers are asking for. And step 3, think of solutions. Ask yourself, how can I make this better? How can I make this faster? Or how can I make this cheaper? Almost all great business ideas begin with these very simple structured questions.
So let's do a really quick review of what we've covered today. Profitable business ideas generally originate from 4 core pillars: identifying problems, engaging in active observation, riding societal trends, and pushing for innovation. The most successful entrepreneurs out there are constantly scanning these 4 areas, always on the lookout for their next big opportunity.
But if you take away just one thing from our explainer today, let it be this. The next great business idea might be hiding right in plain sight, tucked away in an everyday problem. You really don't need a $1 million research lab to be an entrepreneur. You just need to pay close attention to the friction in the world right in front of you. Because every single successful business out there started with just a single idea. So taking everything we've talked about today, looking at your own daily life, your own routine, and the problems you face, what idea could you create?